You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by my book, The Guide for Every Screenwriter, which has been listed as one of the best screenwriting books of all time by the Book Authority. If you're looking for something that reveals the secrets of screenwriting in an easy to understand and engaging way, then this is the book for you. You can find The Guide for Every Screenwriter at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com/books. Now, on to the show. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited. I have on a guest I've kind of been holding in my back pocket. I wanted to wait until we hit episode 100 to bring him on because he has mentored me in the podcasting business. And I want to present to you host of Indie Film Hustle and Bulletproof Screenwriting, Alex Ferrari. Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you so much for having me on, brother. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to be here, man.
No, it just means it's amazing. I didn't think I'd ever hit 100 episodes. Here we are. The show's doing really well. Guests are amazing. And I wanted to bring you on. One, just, say thank you so much for believing in me, believing in the show, and helping bring it to where it's at.
Oh, man, it's all you, brother. It's all you. You're doing the hustle, man. I threw a couple of nuggets down for you. You've been cutting the wood and carrying the water, sir.
Oh, right. Well, thank you. All right. Well, so what I wanted to really kind of dive into is you run Bulletproof Screenwriting. It is well known. You like to, you're a writer yourself, you're a director yourself. So what kind of tips do you have that we can kind of talk about as far as really finding your own success in this indie business?
As far as screenwriters are concerned, I've talked to a good amount of screenwriters in the business, and I've picked up a couple things over the years. Best advice. One of the best pieces of advice I got, and I'm going to drop names, so please forgive me. So I want to give these guys proper credit, so I don't take credit for these amazing pieces of wisdom. But Richard Linklater, when he was on the show, said, however long you think it's going to take, double it.
Wow.
It's going to be twice as long and twice as hard. And that was coming from Richard Linklater.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, that's probably one of the better pieces of advice I've ever heard. The best piece of writing advice I've ever heard is from Jim Uhl's, the writer of Fight Club.
Yeah.
And Jim said, if you want to be a writer, this is what you do. You want to write screenplays, this is what you do. You sit down and you write one screenplay all the way through. No rewriting, just write the whole thing all the way through. When you're done with it, print it, put it in your drawer, close the drawer, start script 2. Do the exact same process. When you're done, put it in the drawer, start script 3.
Yeah.
Finish script 3, put it in the drawer, then pick up script 1 and then start rewriting script 1.
Okay. Interesting.
And he goes, you will be a better writer at the end of 3 screenplays, and you will be able to give more justice to your first screenplay as opposed to you twiddling along for 7 years on that first screenplay. At least now you also have 3 screenplays that you could still be working on. And it was probably one of the most simple and genius pieces of advice I've ever heard for a screenwriter.
I think it's great advice, especially if you read that first draft of that first script, and if it doesn't make you cringe, then I worry about you because you haven't grown as a writer. Because any first draft that you write should make you cringe. That's for me in general. But I actually wanted to ask you about something. You've been in the industry a long time. And one thing I've noticed is locally when I work with producers and I provide them a script, they go, wow, this is a really good script. And I didn't expect the script to be so good because I'm used to only seeing good scripts from people in the industry. I have no problem with someone being a big fish in a small pond. If like you're the big fish in your local community and you're getting that work and that work is getting made, So what if you're not in the industry? I still find that's a form of success. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I had somebody on the show, Alan. I think his name is Alan. He sold 6 independent screenplays and he lives in North Carolina.
Wow.
And he's been producing, and they're all produced. They have some stars in it.
Mhm.
They're B-level, low budget films. But he's working, not B-level, but low budget.
Right.
And he's working, and he's like, I'm a successful screenwriter. Like, this is what I do for a living. I
Yeah.
write movies. So you have to adjust your perspective on what is success for you. Because for so many years, I was like, if I can't do what Robert Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino or Steven Spielberg is
Yeah.
doing, I'm not successful. And that is, first of all, you'll never reach that you'll never be happy
Yeah.
if you're constantly comparing yourselves to masters or people who are just on a different path than you.
Yeah.
You need to find happiness with where you are and how to continue to grow where you are. I come from a very interesting background because I come from a smaller market. I come from the South Florida, Miami market, where I made a living as a film editor.
Wow.
In the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, that was my living. And then I would do directing commercials and stuff like that on the side.
Yeah.
So how I did that, I have no idea. Like, looking back, I can't even comprehend how I just can't comprehend how I was able to do that, because when I got to LA, I moved to LA 13 years ago, and I was like, oh my God, this is like a whole other level of work. Like, you're just it's like you were in the if we can use baseball analogies, you were in a sand lot, and now all of a sudden you're playing in the majors. Like, it was a really, really rough transition, but I had been playing on the sandlot for 10 years.
Right.
So I knew how to play. I knew the fundamentals, and I got caught up. But so when I got to LA, I saw what LA had to offer me, and I was like, okay. And I tell you what, if you can afford it, LA is a wonderful place to be, because you'll probably learn more in a year there than you'll learn in 5 years in your market. Just because it's a bigger market. You're going to be dealing with a lot more people. The whole business is wrapped around it. You walk into any Starbucks, all you see is final drafts on laptops. Like, that's the running joke in LA. And now I just recently moved to Austin, which everyone was like, well, wait a minute, you were in LA. You owned a home in LA. Like, you made it. Like, you were like there. I'm like, yeah, but I saw what LA was able to give me at this point in my life. I was like, I think I could grow my company, and I can grow what I'm doing in a different market. And I don't need to establish myself anymore, because I'm fairly well established in the business.
Right.
So I have my contacts, I have, all of that. So I'm like, why am I here spending obscene amounts of money on taxes and cost of living and things like that, where I could move to Austin and give my family a better life, grow my business, buy studio space, buy property to build out studios and other things like that I cannot do in LA. So this is a long answer to your question, but being a big fish in a small pond, I was a big fish in a small pond. I was probably one of the most well-paid, if not the highest paid editor in Florida for a time, because I knew that for a fact, because I was being paid some obscene money when I got my 1 or 2 staff jobs, which then I was promptly fired a year later. And I'm very proud of my firings, both of them, because I am just not that guy. But I was a big fish, and when I got to LA, I was a guppy.
Yeah.
But then I was able to grow in that space. But I wouldn't have been able to grow in that space unless I was that bigger fish in a small pond. So do what you can in your market, because I've had so many guys on my show who, like, they're in Chicago, or they're in Seattle, or they're in other places where it is not specifically Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they're like the indie film guys there, or the screenwriters there. That's fine. You don't need to be rolling with the big boys. If you can put food on the table.
Yep.
If I told everybody listening right now, look, you're going to be a screenwriter and you're going to make $150,000 a year, but you'll never step foot in Hollywood. Your movies will be produced, but they will never be studio movies.
Yeah.
Can you live with that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a deep question that people need to ask themselves. Like, why are you in this? Are you in this for a living, or are you in this for the glamour or the Oscars or all that kind of stuff?
I think that comes down to the passion of it. I mean, if you're in this for the glamour, if you're in this for the name, or you visualize your star on the walk of fame, are you in this for the right reason, right? If you're a screenwriter who wants to write, who wants to come on a project and really add to that project and get paid for it, that's a whole different version of success. And so I really agree with you, like getting out there, taking advantage of your local market and community, and really becoming that writer and getting those gigs, and then word of mouth starts to spread. And next thing you know, you become the highest paid editor, highest paid screenwriter in the local area. There are stories of writers on Freelancer making $100,000 a year as screenwriters because they take any and every gig they can and they write quickly. And so they're able to start bringing it in. So, I mean, it can be done. The hustle has to happen. You don't have to be in LA to make it happen. But if you do go to LA, you damn well better have that skill set mastered, right? Yeah, you got to be ready for it. You can't go down there thinking I'm going to make my dreams happen and you've only written one screenplay.
I'll tell you my story. So when I was in 2005, no, excuse me, in 2001,
yeah,
I was involved with some gangsters and almost made a
real gangsters.
Real gangsters almost made, almost made a movie, a $20 million movie for the mafia. And I wrote a whole book of it called Shooting for the Mob, where that happened. And then I also was flown out to LA and I met all these big power players and big movie stars and all that stuff. I even had a whole chapter dedicated to Batman, who I met and went to his house, his 25,000 acre ranch, and had to sit down with Batman.
Which Batman?
I can't tell you. You have to read the book.
I'll have to. Okay, there you go.
I mean, you could there's only a couple during that period of time. So, I mean, it's not Adam West. Let's just throw it that way.
Okay. All right. We got it.
So you can take Adam West right off the list.
It's not Adam West. It's not Christian Bale. We can go from there.
Yeah, you can go from there. So anyway, the reason I bring that up is after that devastating experience of my life, I decided to, like, you know what, as a last ditch effort, I'm going to fly out to LA to see if I can make it as an editor. And I recorded, I don't know, 50 or 60 VHS copies of my demo reel, which I had been working beautifully in my local market. And a lot of them were still spec stuff.
Okay.
And I'd been editing for like 4 or 5 years, but a lot of it was spec stuff that was, you know, really high end, look good spec. And I was like, oh, it always works. So I went to LA and I stayed there on my friend's couch for 30 days, for a month.
Wow.
I went and I dropped all these reels off. I faxed 250, 275 resumes. This is 2001, guys.
Amazing.
So I did all that and I got 2 phone calls back. I went to go see those. Out of all of that, mind you, I'm a big fish in Florida, but I was in really bad place financially and emotionally. Imagine
of
being
course.
that close to your dream for a year and just getting it wiped. It just didn't happen. So I went there and basically LA kicked my ass for those 30 days. Like I got 3 parking tickets. I almost got my car towed.
Oh my God.
Because I didn't know anything. I was living in Van Nuys. So it was just like it was a really rough time. And I just didn't know the lay of the land. I was so unprepared. Did I have the skill set? I definitely had the skill set, but emotionally I wasn't there. And I needed a little bit more seasoning before I can go back. So I got my ass kicked. And then I had to go back to Florida with my tail between my legs and almost went bankrupt. Almost literally was a few days before filing bankruptcy. And then I got a call from my first boss who's like, hey man, I hear you're looking for work. They're looking for somebody up in West Palm Beach at this network. And that's how I started my way back. And then I just started, for the next 5 years or next 3 or 4 years, I built up my own post house and got everything ready. And then finally I decided to it's time. And in 2008, I decided to go to LA, but I was so much more ready so that when I landed in 08, I landed with a feature waiting for me. I landed with two other gigs from an older client. And I was and then as soon as the the financial crisis happened, I was fine. And we just kept, I'd never stopped working that entire time. So I was good. And I also, did I ever tell you my DVD story?
I'm ready to hear it.
So so this is the definition of hustle, guys. So you understand, you even with my experience, with my demo reels, with all the stuff I'd done, I'd already been like in 250 festivals, 300 festivals with my shorts. I had my name starting to get out there. With all that said, remember when Blockbuster and Hollywood Videos were going out of business?
Yeah.
And I lived by this Hollywood Video. Down the street is my local Hollywood Video. And when I was about 2 weeks before I moved to LA, I saw the big going out of business sign. I'm like, oh my God, they're going. So what I did was I walked in, mind you, don't have a whole lot of savings, but this is how I rolled. I walked in, I said, can I speak to the manager, please? And the manager comes up like, yeah, can I do it? I'm like, I need you to close the store and get everybody out of here. He goes, why? He goes, because I'm going to buy every DVD in your store.
Wow.
And he's like, okay, let's have a conversation. I go, do you take credit cards? He goes, yes. I'm like, fantastic. So what we did was I bought, I don't know, 10, 12,000 DVDs plus PlayStation games, plus all this kind of stuff. And I got everything for about, I'm going to say about $12,000, $13,000, $14,000.
Wow.
And I put it all on my Discover card. A lot of points. It was awesome. Because I said, well, if I can't get work, at least I can sell DVDs on Amazon and eBay to survive. So I had a backup plan to, like, just in case this whole, I'm just going to show up in LA. I know two people and I'm going to start getting work as an editor. That I had, luckily, at least we have the DVDs. So we ended up making like $25,000-$30,000 off those DVDs. And it just kept us fed. But didn't even keep us fed. It was like bonus money because I was always working. My wife got money, got a job like instantly.
Yeah.
Because she has a real profession. So, and that was it. But that's the definition of hustle and how you have to think about things like that. So I hope that gives you a little insight.
No, I think it's really interesting to really consider, like, what do you need to do in order to survive? Because I've heard the horror stories of writers who quit their day jobs, went out to LA to make it, ended up homeless, ended up, couch surfing and never made it. And then came back broke, not just physically or monetarily, but mentally. And I hate to see that. Like, really prepare yourself and get ready if you're going to make a move like that. If you're going to do that, make sure that you have like the backup plan or that you are prepped, because I hate to see anybody throw it away in a dream and think that the dream is enough.
Oh yeah. And there's another thing that sometimes the hustle mindset it can go too far.
Okay. I sense it. I sense the story.
That's a story. So after about a year of us being in LA, I was working and doing all this stuff, and it was Christmas, and I found this situation because I was still in the DVD sale. So I was like, if I go to GameStop, there's this game that they have on sale there for $14.
Okay.
It was like Big Hunt game something or other, like for the Wii or some shit. I don't know. So then, but if you go to Amazon, it's $60 on Amazon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was like, oh, let's get into a little bit of arbitrage. So what I did was, so if everyone listening is like, oh, this guy probably just went and bought like, 20 or 30 or 100 of these games. I'm like, no, that would have involved me spending money, and I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to ship things and pack things. I just wanted the cash. So what I did was I put it up for sale on Amazon, and every time there was a sale on Amazon, I would go to GameStop. I would buy it on GameStop and then have them ship it directly to the customer on Amazon.
Are you serious?
Wait. So I was basically out. I was basically out of the situation. I was just like,
you were drop shipping.
I'm drop shipping at the GameStop. but GameStop's doing it for me.
That's
so I did. I think I got away with about 50 or 60 sales before GameStop shut it down. GameStop's like, wait, who's this guy who keeps sending this up? What's going on?
He really likes this game.
He likes this game a lot. I'm like, I'm just sending gifts to all of my friends. What's
Just in case I want to play it more than one time. What?
Exactly. It's just in case I'm backups. So, but that was, and then I told I was so proud. It was Christmas time. So it was like we had a bunch of little extra money. I'm like, oh, we got all this extra money for Christmas. And my wife, God bless her heart, she's like, we need to have a talk. We are not here for you to sell games on Amazon. We moved across the country for you to follow your dreams. What are you doing to make those dreams come true?
That's a good spouse.
And I was just like, holy God, I had like a come to Jesus conversation with myself. And I was just like, okay, it's hard to break habits like that because I've been hustling all my life. So it's like when you have to think about just shifting that mindset, it took me a little bit to do. And it's still like, even like when I'm still out, I wouldn't do it now, but like if I'm like
see an opportunity.
I see opportunities left and right. I'm like,
awesome.
I could do this. If I was 20 years younger, I would be drop shipping. I'd have a whole eBay business. I'd be buying stuff on Walmart. I would be garage sailing professionally. Like I do.
Those people that do that, they go cross country, man. They go cross country.
There's so many ways.
Yeah.
The problem, all of that is, it's just all a lot of work. And
it's a job.
It's a lot of time. You've got to build out systems, all this kind of stuff. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to follow my dreams as a filmmaker. So that's the shift that I had to do. But the moral of that story is the mindset.
Yeah.
If your mindset is not solid, no matter what you do, you're not going to get to your goals. And there's also something called the subconscious mind that will stop you from getting to your goals.
Self-sabotage.
And it happens all the time, because I'll tell you, my story was because of that incident with the gangsters and the mafia. I unintentionally associated a feature film with a tremendous amount of pain. So for the next 10 years or 15 years, I never made a feature, though I could have. The technology was there, opportunities were there, and up in the foreground, in the front seat, I was trying my darndest to get packaging deals and trying to get investors and trying to do writing scripts and doing all this stuff. But the backseat driver was consciously
scared.
He was just terrified. So it would just constantly I would self-sabotage myself very often, because I only did this in hindsight. Looking back, I'm like, why didn't I do this? And you have to understand that your subconscious mind, everyone listening, your subconscious mind is built to do one thing, actually two things, is to protect you and to find pleasure. So avoid pain and find pleasure. Right. That is the only thing. That's its job. It doesn't care about your dreams. It doesn't care about if you're gonna get that screenplay sold. And it doesn't care. What it cares, like, do you have food? Do you have shelter? Do you have love or intimate relations? I mean, there's certain core things that it's looking to do, and it's also the main job of that subconscious mind is to protect you. From pain, from potential danger, from the tiger around the corner that might eat you if you were, back in the day. So if you understand how the mind is working, and I've done a tremendous amount of research on neurology and how the whole brain functions, you start thinking about it. You're like, okay, this all makes perfect sense. And then you start analyzing yourself and your life and your decisions and what chose you to go here, what chose you to go there. And most of the times it's fear. Most of the times it's fear.
I think you're onto something. I mean, I think self-sabotage is a real thing. And I've seen writers do it, where they get stuck on that one script and they can't write anything else. I really think that's a form of self-sabotage, because they're comfortable with that script. That script is safe. It's the one script that they know, but they're not allowing themselves to grow. They're not allowing themselves to become better. They just keep focusing on that script. or the unfinished script where you have like 3 or 4 scripts you're working on at the same time. That's the same problem. You're not allowing yourself to commit to that one script to finish it so that you can move on. It's a safety thing. It's a fear thing. And I totally get it. So I think self-sabotage is absolutely a real thing that can prevent a writer from building their path to success. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, actually.
Yeah. The thing is this, if you're right now listening and you've been writing the same script for over a year, you need to stop.
Yeah.
You need to stop and move on. And I'd rather you hear it from me and you don't waste another 5 years dwindling along on this script because you're like, well, this is the baby. This is the thing. That is not a professional screenwriter.
Mm-hmm.
I've had guest after guest after guest after guest on my show. Some of them winning Oscars, some of them just starting out, but all of them understand that. And I've said this, I'm like, so can you please tell everybody that if you've been working on the script for the last year, you really need to stop and move on. And he's like, absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're not a professional screenwriter writes, doesn't rewrite for the next year, writes and constantly is writing. And I've always found it good to have something else to jump to.
Yeah.
To write in the middle of, I always try to work on 2 projects at the same time. Cause when you run into a block here, you can jump on something else and keep
That's your process. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It works a lot, but the hard truth is if you're still been writing that script for a year or God forbid longer, then you really need to understand that you are hurting yourself.
Yeah. I've got a 5-week turnaround. I can write it faster than that, but I've got a 5-week turnaround. And my wife, man, she holds my feet to the fire, dude. I tell you, like,
good.
If I'm delaying or I'm taking my time, she's like, hey, you gonna be writing or what? I was like, okay, I'm on it.
Oh no, don't even tell me about it. I mean, look, a good spouse is priceless. And
oh yeah.
Mine does the exact same thing, and she tries to keep you, because look, if you're our age, Geoffrey, and we are, don't have Oscars, and not pulling in 6 to 7 figures a year off of our art, we've got supportive wives or supportive spouses.
Yeah,
and we as artists can kind of get lost in the desert a bit sometimes. Or we have shiny light syndrome, which will jump into this or we'll jump into that. Oh, I'll do this now. I've had a really bad case of shiny light syndrome for some time, and it's taken me years.
Sparkly.
It's sparkly, but look it over here, and then I could build this over here, and I could do this over there, and and I don't know if I think you've noticed it, but I've built out this beast with Indie Film House.
Oh, it's an empire, man.
And there's been so many massive little things that I've like, oh, I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll go do this and I'll go do that. And I was spreading myself so thin that now I've actually started to cut things out, started to consolidate, to cut things out. So instead of the 5 podcasts I do, I've now dumped it down to 4.
Wow. That's such a strange.
That. But I deleted a whole website, gone. There's certain things that I've done because I was like, what is my time worth? Is my time going into that part of the air? What's the ROI on this? And what's the ROT? Return on time and return on investment.
I think that's something, return on time is huge.
Especially for writers. So you're like, okay, what are you going to write? Are you going to write something that's going to move your career forward? Are you writing something that is just fun for you?
Yeah.
Which is fine. But how much time are you giving to this? Because if you're trying to make a go of this, you've got to have a plan. If it's a side hustle, fine. But if you're truly trying to make a go of this, you've really got to have a plan about where you're going and how you're going to do it. Another great piece of advice I heard from Rick Linklater when we were talking is, he's like, when you're trying to write, don't write something because you think other people are going to, it's going to sell or it's hot.
Yeah.
Or any of that stuff. He goes, you need to not think about those kind of things, which I agree and disagree a little bit with him, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
If you're making it yourself, you got to think about budget.
I mean, I look at the market when I write, but I totally understand what he's trying to say, because he wants that special sauce.
Right. And the thing is that the special sauce is you. It's the thing that you have that nobody else has. there's something, if you can tap into that special sauce, like if you look at a Rick Linklater film, that's a Rick Linklater film. There's just that's not a Spielberg film. That's not a Nolan film. That's not a Rodriguez or Tarantino film. You look at Tarantino, that's a Tarantino film.
Right.
Very specific, so you look at a Spielberg film, it's a Spielberg film. These guys have been able to tap into their own voice and their own secret sauce on how they tell stories. And that's something that you need to do. And it takes sometimes years before you have you're comfortable enough to go there. But that is what Hollywood reacts to. That is what agents and managers react to. Unique voices, not I can write like Shane Black. We got a Shane Black. We don't need you.
That's a really good point.
And that's the thing is so many people, not only writers, but directors as well. We're like, oh, I just shot this thing like Michael Bay. We're good, but Michael's doing it much better than you because you can't do Michael Bay better. You can't out Bay the Bay. You can't out Tarantino. Like you can't do that. So everybody, any writer, any filmmaker that people listening who you admire, look at their voice. It is very distinctive. It is not, and the reason why we talk about the list of filmmakers and writers that I've just kind of talked, like Sorkin and Tarantino and Roth, and these guys and gals have been able to tap into their voice. Now, out of the top 50 or 100 screenwriters and directors in the world, below them might be another 30 or 40,000 who are working, and they're able to do work and they're able to get the job done. They may be able to get hired, and at a certain level, they have a certain level of their voice. Yeah. But the people at the top, they've been able to figure out how to truly tap into it and hone it in a way that you just George Lucas and look at your background, for God's sakes. I've got a life-size Yoda sitting over here.
I love the Yoda.
Off camera. So I get it, but all of these filmmakers, all these writers, they are able to tap into their own secret sauce. And that is the key to success as a writer. If you try to write like somebody else, and at the beginning, by the way, we all do it. At the beginning, we all look at Tarantino. We try to write like Tarantino. We all look like a Sorkin, or we look at a Shane Black, or we look at William Goldman, and we start looking at these guys and we start trying to write with them. All of them do. You look at the early Scorseses, you look at the early Spielbergs, you look at the early Coppolas, they're all trying to be Kurosawa. Yeah. And they're trying. And then slowly their voice comes out, and then slowly they start, okay, whoa, this is who I am. Okay, let me go in there. Yeah. That's the key to success in this business it's your voice, is you.
I think you're right. And developing that voice takes time.
It's not, you're not gonna come out of the womb with it like that. It
just takes time.
Sometimes you're Mozart, and sometimes that happens, And by the way, Mozart didn't write a symphony at 5. His symphonies at 5 suck, from what I heard. It's 11 is when he really got going.
Well, there you go. Anyway. There you go. Well, no, but I think you're right. A Shane Black voice is far different from a Christopher McQuarrie voice. I remember when I first started screenwriting and I was reading all of these different professional screenwriters, I read Christopher McQuarrie's scripts and I went, oh, his voice is really similar to mine. And then I started figuring out how to make mine my voice over, dozens of scripts. So it can happen, but definitely don't copy somebody. That's not what you want to do. But you had mentioned Return of Time, and I don't want to take too much of your time up. So I did recently had a cardiac event. I had a heart issue. I ended up in the hospital, found out, thought I was dying.
We all thought you were dying after those texts, sir. You were saying your goodbyes.
I might have sent a text in between delirium to Alex Ferrari. So that might have happened. I don't actually remember it. So that tells you the state that I was in. But we're figuring it out. I'm having heart spasms, and it's okay. They just have to figure out what's going on. But after that happened, I really did start looking at Return of Time as a thing, because I would waste so much of my time chasing down the wrong rabbit hole, really figuring out what to do. And now looking at everything I'm doing, I am kind of cutting it back. I am figuring out what is working and putting my energy there. So for screenwriters out there, really look at where is your time going? because we only have so much. And that was eye-opening for me. And thank you again for being so graceful with my texts.
I was terrified. I'm like, holy shit, it's like you were good. You had one foot in the grave, according to these texts. Like, it's over.
Essentially.
Thank you. It was a pleasure knowing you. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
that was it.
It was a rough. I'm like, and then my daughters are like, is your friend okay? Because the text came in. The text came in. So my whole family was invested. Like, Geoffrey. Oh no, the whole thing, dude. It was like, because I got the text in the car. I got the text in the car, and we're all like out on a Sunday or something like that, or Saturday, whenever it happened. And we're all like, oh yeah, I think my friend's dying. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I think according to this. So look, every once in a while, the universe is going to give you a hello and poke you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a slight nudge. And other times it's a sledgehammer because you haven't been listening to the slight nudges.
I think you're right.
I think, listen, and let's get a little metaphysical here. If you start thinking throughout your life, and only like two old farts like you and me can say things like this, but over the course of your life, you start noticing that where you've been going.
Yeah.
There's I'm not getting religious, but something is pushing you. I believe in the universe.
No, I agree with you.
Something is pushing you in certain direction because there's no reason. Listen, man, I was an editor, a film director, an olive oil property, owner, olive oil store, gourmet shop owner. That one alone, like, how the hell did I get from filmmaking to selling olive oil? Someone nudged me.
That's
because I didn't even want to sell olive oil. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, this is a good idea. Something happened. If you would have told the 17-year-old me working in the video store in high school that I would be talking to the people I get to talk to on a daily basis on my shows, and that not only will I interview and have deep conversations about the makings of some of my favorite films of all time, as well as just talking to some of these directors and writers and stuff about their craft. Not only that, but then with many of them becoming friends with them.
Cool.
And colleagues and things like that. That is insane. It's insane. Now, how could I've gotten from selling olive oil to a podcast to where I am today?
Yeah.
If there's not something nudging, because there's no direct line here. It's not like, hey, I'm going to make a script. Hey, okay, I bought the script, got sold for $1 million. I'm now making a Marvel movie. That's a direct line. That's a direct line.
No,
I've been all over the damn place. How the hell have I gotten to this place in my life where now this has become a major part of who I am and what I do and my mission in life? It took me 40 odd years to figure this out and go, oh, okay, I need to be doing this as well as writing, as well as directing and other things like that. It's just, and by giving back, and I know you know this feeling, by giving back, you get so much,
it's
amazing.
It's just, I mean, you're a warrior for the indie filmmaker. I try and do the same for screenwriters. I do have to say thanks for Jim Henson for passing you that message, by the way. I think I texted Jim in my delirium.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I honestly don't remember most of it. It was pretty bad, I'll tell you that much. But I will say, being where I'm at now and kind of being like, I view myself as the middleman. Like, I get to interview my screenwriting like gurus, like the mentors that I have their books, they're behind me. I've read them multiple times. They get to come on my show, the Chris Voglers, the Dave Trotiers, the Linda Seegers, like it in the industry. I get to talk with them, and then I get to ask them the questions that I think the audience wants to know, and I get to be that bridge. And it is such an honor for me to be able to do that. And to be able to talk shop with these people is amazing. And so thank you again for mentoring me in this process, sir.
Well, I appreciate, I appreciate the kind words, and I'm glad that I can help you find your path. And you've been doing a fantastic job, by the way. I'm going to drop another name, so prepare yourself.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
So I was talking to Ed Burns on the show, And Ed, when I got him on the show, I found out that he was a fan of mine. He'd been listening to me for a while
cool.
and like read my books and stuff. And I was like, what universe am I in? And he said something that was so profound on the show to me. He's like, Alex, you don't understand the service you provide. And I go, what do you mean? He's like, when I was in New York, I was walking in New York one day on the street, and all of a sudden Spike Lee jumps out in front of me, walking to a cab or something. And all I wanted to do was run up to him and go, Spike, she's got to have it. Spike, do the right thing. Spike, how did you do this? How did you do that? But I didn't have the balls to do it. And Spike got in his car and left. You do that for not just me, but you do it for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And I go, I never really thought about it that way, because for me, it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's just like, I'm just talking to Ed Burns. He goes, well, I sat down and I talked for 40 minutes about how Ed Burns did Brothers McMullen, the whole story.
That's cool.
You know, and I just had Elizabeth Avalon on, the producer of El Mariachi and Robert's ex-wife. And we talked 40 minutes in Mariachi, like the truth behind it, like this legendary mythical movie. And she's just telling me, look, this is when Robert met Quentin, because I introduced them.
That's
like
cool.
These are the things. But that conversation now gets broadcast around the world and will now benefit hopefully tens of hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And I just had a great conversation. So for me, it's like I'm having a fantastic conversation on a one-to-one level, but because I put it out there into the world free of charge, it helps the community in a large way that I didn't really realize. Because as podcasters, we just look at a mic.
Right.
Like, you know, recently we're now videoing, because it took the first 3 years, first 3.5 years, 4 years, no video.
Right.
It was just audio only. And you just forget sometimes that people are listening. You forget people like, hey, thank you. Hey, this really helped me.
Yeah.
It's a pretty awesome feeling.
Yeah, you're doing benevolent work, man. And it's Indie Film Hustle and Bulletproof Screenwriting. Find that podcast on the IFH Podcast Network, right?
That is correct. Absolutely.
Alex Ferrari, let's do this in another 100 episodes.
I will, sir. And if I may be so bold as to hustle a little bit.
Okay.
If anyone out there is interested, you can, if you need script coverage, we have bulletproof script coverage. All you got to do is go to covermyscreenplay.com, and we, according to Google, are in the top 2.
Heck yeah.
Top 2 script coverage services in the world, apparently. So according to Google, so that's pretty awesome. And we try to help screenwriters as much as we can there. Bulletproofscreenwriting.tv, indiefilmhustle.com. And we've got free courses that we give out. And if you want to purchase some amazing courses by your host here,
that's me,
Geoffrey, he's also on IFH Academy, which is at ifhacademy.com. And we're, of course, having our Black Friday sale, 30% off all the time. Just go to ifhacademy.com and you'll see the code there. It's going to be going on to the end of the month.
You just hustled your ass off right there.
I've done this a couple times.
We will make sure all of those links are available for you in the show notes. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Alex Ferrari.
And congrats on all your continued success, sir. And I'm very, very proud of you, man. 100 is no small feat. I can't wait for 1,000.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media, where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.